The polished marble floor of the Voss political consulting lobby reflected the crisp lines of Ethan Voss's Italian shoes as he strode past his assistant, who scrambled to keep up. "So, the senator's press team is already waiting inside," she panted. "Let them wait," Ethan said without slowing. "They need me more than I need them." He wasn't wrong. Ethan Voss was a name whispered in green rooms and shadowed lounges across Washington. He had taken a no-name city councilman from Minneapolis and turned him into a governor. He had flipped a swing district red, then blue, then red again, all based on who paid the most. But this election was personal. Senator Halloran, the newest face of a reinvented centrist America, was Ethan's last golden ticket to the national stage. A win here, and Ethan would finally escape the swamp to shape it from above. He entered the glass-walled boardroom with the presence of a lion entering a courtroom. Halloran stood up like a student awaiting grades. "Senator," Ethan nodded, brushing past. The press team scurried, trying to place notes and slides in front of him. "Kill all of this," Ethan said, waving dismissively. "Tonight's not about policies. It's about power. We show the world a man who already looks like the next president, not a man asking to become one." Halloran gulped. "Got it." "And Senator," Ethan leaned in. "Smile less. You look like a realtor." The penthouse suite of Hotel Langston was awash in evening sunlight. Ethan adjusted his cufflinks, staring into the mirror with a practiced stillness. Behind him, Ivy twirled in a red silk dress that clung like a second skin. "Well," she asked, posing. Ethan toned, took one look, and smiled like a man seeing the future. "You're going to get me killed tonight," he said, walking toward her. "Good," Ivy replied. "If I don't, I'm not doing my job." Ivy Blake wasn't just a distraction. She was smart, sharp, and had 500,000 followers on political TikTok. Ethan discovered her after she dismantled a mayoral debate in a viral stitch. She hated politicians. He turned her into one. "Tonight, you are not my intern," Ethan said, brushing a curl from her face. "You're my strategist, my date, my secret weapon." "And your wife?" Ivy asked lightly. Ethan froze for a second. "Naomi hasn't shown her face in months," he said, adjusting his tie. "Besides, this is business." "You mean revenge?" Ivy said, stepping into heels. He smiled. Same difference. The campaign launch was held at the Sovereign, a converted opera house in downtown D.C. Once home to symphonies, it now hosted power plays. Lights bathed the grand hall in gold and midnight blue. Security buzzed. Red carpets unfurled. Billionaires brushed shoulders with activists. Ethan's kind of chaos. Reporters filled the steps, snapping pictures as Ivy and Ethan stepped out of their black SUV. "Ethan, who's your date?" one shouted. "Is that Ivy Blake?" The TikTok firebrand. Ivy smiled, poised. Ethan whispered, "Let them wonder. Mystery is half the game." Inside, Senator Halloran nervously greeted donors while Ethan worked the room like a conductor. He introduced Ivy to executives, journalists, and retired generals. "Meet Ivy. She's the one making me sound 30 again." Everyone laughed. Ethan smiled. He was winning. Naomi was nothing but an old chapter. Then the music dipped. The lights shifted. A ripple moved through the crowd. Ethan toned and saw the limo pulling up outside the glass entrance. "No," he muttered. The door of the limousine opened with slow, deliberate grace. A white stiletto heel touched the carpet. Then the other, Naomi Voss. She emerged like a goddess from Olympus, dressed in ivory satin, hair swept into a flawless updo. Her face calm, lethal, her eyes locked on Ethan's. The crowd gasped as cameras went into a frenzy. But it wasn't Naomi's dress, or even her return, that caused jaws to drop. It was who stepped out behind her. Governor Lennox. Charismatic, popular, potential 2028 frontrunner. And currently the most powerful name in the room, aside from Ethan. He extended his hand. Naomi took it. And then, casually, deliberately, she kissed him on the cheek. Flash, flash, flash. Ethan's jaw clenched. His stomach flipped. Ivy turned to him, whispering, "Is that?" My wife, Ethan replied, cold. Naomi walked through the crowd like royalty. Eyes followed her. Even Halloran looked away from his speech notes. And Ethan? He burned inside his skin. Naomi and Lennox made their way across the ballroom, pausing to shake hands, nod to donors, take questions from the press. Ethan tried to hold his composure. His mind spun. Ivy whispered, "Why didn't you tell me she was coming?" "Because I didn't know," Ethan growled. "You said she was out of the game." She was. The room, once his chessboard, felt like it was tipping sideways. Naomi was supposed to be in Europe consulting for NGOs. He'd heard she was off the grid. And yet here she was, dressed like a headline, kissing the man Ethan had been trying to court for a year. Should we leave? Ivy asked gently. No, Ethan said, straightening his blazer. We don't leave. We perform. But as he stepped forward to shake hands with a group of donors, a woman intercepted him. Press badge. Smug smile. Mr. Voss, did you know Naomi was dating the governor? Ethan raised a brow. Did she confirm that? Well, the kiss kinda did, the reporter smirked. He forced a smile. You should know better than to judge a relationship by a kiss. She leaned in. So it's true? He didn't answer, just turned away, only to meet eyes with Naomi across the room. She lifted her glass in a silent toast. No smirk, no emotion, just complete control. A champagne flute dangled from Naomi's fingers as she and Governor Lennox made their way through the sovereign's glowing ballroom. A crowd followed them like shadows chasing a flame. Ethan watched from the corner like a dethroned king. Is he touching her lower back? Ivy whispered. Ethan didn't answer. He couldn't. Lennox leaned in to whisper something in Naomi's ear. She laughed, soft and dangerous. Everyone noticed. Senator Halloran's campaign manager muttered beside Ethan, "This isn't good. If Lennox endorses another ticket, we're dead in the water." "He won't," Ethan replied, jaw tight. "He's just flexing." But Ivy sensed the panic under his cool exterior. She placed a hand on his arm. "Ethan, are you okay?" He turned to her with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I'm fine. Let her enjoy the moment. The Queen thinks she's on the throne, but the game's not over." From across the room, Naomi caught Ivy's hand on Ethan's arm. Her lips twitched, just slightly, like checkmate in slow motion. The piano played something jazzy and expensive in the background. Naomi's lips parted in a knowing smile as she sipped her drink beside the governor. "Ethan's shaking," she said softly. Lennox chuckled. "Good. You don't like him." "I like him. But I don't trust him," Lennox said, swirling his bourbon. "He's a brilliant manipulator. The type who sells you a crown and leaves you with handcuffs." Naomi looked over at Ethan, who was now talking animatedly to a donor. "Once, I thought he was the smartest man in the room." "And now?" Lennox asked. Naomi met his eyes. "Now I know the smartest man isn't always the loudest." Lennox grinned. "Remind me why we're doing this." Naomi leaned in. "Because he thought I'd crumble, that I'd vanish quietly while he paraded a shiny new distraction around D.C. And instead, you walked in holding hands with the governor of Virginia," Lennox mused. "Exactly," Naomi replied, glass raised. "Let the cameras roll. It's my town now." Ivy stood stiffly at the open bar, staring across the room at Naomi. "She's so poised," she muttered. "Former Tony," Ethan said flatly, "used to be the ice in every room." Ivy smirked. "I thought I was supposed to be your storm tonight." "You still are," he replied. "She's just a surprise thunderclap." They laughed, but Ivy's fingers tightened around her glass. "Why didn't you tell me how calculated she is?" Ivy asked. "You said she was done with politics." "I thought she was," Ethan said, the lie heavy in his throat. Ivy stared at Naomi again, this time not with jealousy, but recognition. "She's not here for fun," she said. "She's here for blood." Ethan's silence confirmed it. "You really think she's with Lennox?" Ivy asked. Ethan didn't answer. "She kissed him in front of 50 cameras, Ethan." Still, silence. "You don't know?" He exhaled. I didn't even know she was back in the country. In a candlelit alcove near the stage, Governor Lennox and Naomi were cornered by reporters. "Governor, are you and Mrs. Voss an official couple?" a journalist asked. Naomi smiled. "I'm not Mrs. Voss anymore." A murmur rolled through the press pit. The cameras leaned in. "So, that's a yes?" another reporter asked. "We're here tonight to support a new generation of leadership," Lennox replied smoothly. "And that includes smart, brilliant women like Naomi." He turned to her and raised her hand for a soft kiss. "I'm lucky to have her advice." "And more," a bold blogger pushed. Naomi leaned in and whispered into the MIC, "Wouldn't you like to know?" The press roared. Twitter lit up. Across the room, Senator Halloran looked panicked. Ethan approached him quickly. "Don't worry. Lennox is just posturing. He's not endorsing anyone tonight." "But the headlines." "Let me handle Naomi," Ethan said. "I know how she moves." Halloran didn't look convinced. "You sure? 'Cause right now, she's moving votes." The main stage lights dimmed. A drum roll echoed. The campaign launch was officially underway. Senator Halloran took the stage, sweat glistening despite the cool air. Ethan whispered in his ear, "Stay confident. Project Calm." Halloran nodded and stepped forward. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, voice slightly shaky, "we're here tonight to launch not just a campaign, but a movement." The applause was light. Naomi stood near the front, arms folded, expression unreadable. Halloran continued, "We believe in fairness, in focus, and in a future free of a noise." The MIC crackled. Suddenly, a second MIC came to life behind him. Naomi had walked up on stage. Gasps! Halloran froze. Naomi smiled at the stunned crowd. "Forgive me for interrupting," she said smoothly, "but I couldn't help but reflect on the irony of launching a campaign on the promise of integrity from a team that built its foundation on betrayal." Silence. Ethan stood frozen. Naomi continued, "To clean campaigns, real alliances, and no dirty tricks." She turned and walked off, her heels clicking like gunshots. Ivy whispered, "She just called you out in front of every donor you brought." Ethan's face hardened. This wasn't just personal anymore. It was war, the ballroom murmured with uneasy energy. After Naomi's MIC drop interruption, the once-praised campaign event now felt like a funeral in designer clothes. Ethan walked briskly toward the hallway, his expression unreadable. Ivy followed close behind. "Where are we going?" she asked. "To fix this," Ethan muttered, "before Halloran pisses himself." But just as they rounded a corner, a firm hand tapped Ethan's shoulder. He turned and locked eyes with Governor Lennox. "Ethan," Lennox said with a politician's grin, "good to see you. You look rattled." "Governor?" Ethan's smile was brittle. "Didn't realize you were part of the entertainment lineup." "I wasn't," Lennox replied. "But when Naomi speaks, people listen." Ethan chuckled dryly. "Enjoy it while it lasts. She has a habit of switching sides when things get inconvenient." The governor leaned in, voice calm. "You should have never underestimated her, Ethan. She was your best move, and you played her like a pawn." He stepped back and winked. "Now she's a queen." Lennox turned and walked away. Ivy whispered, "He's right, isn't he?" Ethan didn't respond. Naomi leaned against a marble pillar in the lounge, sipping from her champagne flute. The buzz of her interruption was still echoing across the ballroom. "Naomi!" She turned slowly. Ethan stood at the threshold, face unreadable. "Well," she said, setting her drink down, "you came. You hijacked my launch." "Your launch." Naomi laughed softly. "Ethan, you don't own the stage anymore." "I built that stage," he said, voice rising, "and then set it on fire." Naomi snapped. "You think parading around with a red dress distraction and empty promises makes you untouchable." Ethan stepped forward. This was personal. Naomi tilted her head. "No, Ethan, you made it personal the day you slept with a 24-year-old TikToker while I was in Geneva negotiating aid packages." Ethan flinched. She walked up to him, their faces inches apart. "I didn't come to embarrass you," Naomi whispered. I came to remind you, whoever you build without me falls. And just like that, she walked away. Later that night, Ivy sat in Ethan's penthouse, curled up in an oversized chair. The city lights painted the windows with gold streaks, but her mind was anything but bright. She stared at her phone. Notifications were exploding. Naomi Voss was trending. Again, news outlets were calling her the Power Whisperer. TikTok was flooded with edits of Naomi's stage interruption, most of them set to Beyoncé songs. Ivy wasn't even in the conversation. Ethan walked in, tie undone, expression blank. Tomorrow, he said flatly, we leak the Halloran strategy deck, paint Lennox and Naomi as saboteurs. Ivy didn't respond. He looked at her. You with me? She hesitated. Why did you really bring me tonight? You're smart. You're fresh. You understand online narrative. No, Ivy interrupted. Was I your power move? A distraction for Naomi? Something pretty to hang on your arm? Ethan blinked. You're more than that. But not more than her, Ivy said. He sat beside her. I chose you. You settled for me, she whispered. There's a difference. She stood, phone in hand. I have the whole speech Naomi rehearsed. Want to leak that instead? Ethan looked up, startled. You recorded it. She was practicing in the lounge. I heard everything. All I have to do is send. He stood. You leaked that. You burn her. Ivy smiled faintly. So let her burn. The following day, Ivy received a call. Unknown number. Virginia area code. She hesitated, then answered. Ivy Blake, a calm voice asked. Yes. This is Jordan Shaw, Governor Lennox's chief of staff. The governor and Naomi would like to meet. Ivy blinked. Why? We saw your footage. Ivy froze. I haven't sent it. But you will, Shaw said. That's the kind of move Ethan Voss taught you to make, isn't it? Silence. We're not here to threaten you, Shaw continued. We're here to offer you a better seat at the table. What table? Naomi's building something real. You don't want to be Ethan's shadow forever. Why would she trust me? Ivy asked. Because she knows Betrayal better than anyone. Click. An hour later, Ivy received an encrypted file with a single message. Proof Ethan sabotaged his last client. Use it wisely. Her fingers hovered over the send button. Whose side was she really on? By noon, the political world ignited. A photo had leaked. It was Ivy and Ethan on the campaign night, his hand low on her back, her leaning in. The camera caught it from just the right angle, making it look like a lover's whisper in the middle of chaos. The caption read, Who's pulling the strings behind Senator Halloran's campaign? And who's pulling whose? Within minutes, journalists dissected Ivy's past. Her TikToks, her affiliations, her statements about burning the political machine down. Halloran's donors panicked. Ethan stormed into Ivy's apartment. You leaked it, he demanded. No, Ivy said, though even she wasn't sure anymore. Ethan slammed his fist on the table. You just cost us a Senate seat. No, Ethan, she said, voice trembling. You did, the second you made me your weapon. He stared at her. Are you with them now? Ivy held her ground. I'm not with anyone. I'm just done being your pawn. He stared at her for a long beat, then turned and walked out. The political talk shows were brutal. Is Ethan Voss the real candidate behind Senator Halloran? Who is Ivy Blake, and what's her influence on D.C. politics? Naomi Voss just outmaneuvered the Kingmaker, live and on camera. Ethan sat in his office, scrolling through headlines, each one a dagger. His phone vibrated. Another call from Halloran. He didn't answer. Instead, he turned to the giant digital board showing campaign contributions. Red markers blinked where green ones had stood yesterday. Donors were vanishing. His assistant burst in. Halloran just went on CNN. His distancing himself, saying you acted independently. His terminating your contract. Ethan exhaled, slow and tight. I built that man, he whispered. And now he's stepping over you, she replied. Just then, the wall-mounted TV flipped to a new segment. Breaking. Naomi Voss announces education initiative with Governor Lennox, signaling what many believe is a soft launch of a 2028 presidential campaign. Ethan stared, silent, still. The camera zoomed in on Naomi, smiling confidently as she addressed a roaring crowd. This wasn't a loss. It was an execution. Later that night, Naomi stood in her suite at the Intercontinental. Alone. There was a knock. She didn't look surprised. She opened the door. Ethan stepped in, uninvited. "Don't worry," he said. "I'm not here to beg." "Pity," Naomi replied, closing the door behind him. "I rehearsed a whole rejection speech." They sat across from each other. "You won," he said. "I admit it." Naomi sipped her tea. "This wasn't about winning, Ethan. It was about reminding you." He tilted his head. "Reminding me of what?" She met his eyes. "That you don't get to rewrite history just because you change partners." Silence. "You made me invisible," she continued. "Told the world I was tired of the game. That I left because I couldn't handle the heat." "You did leave," he snapped. "I left you," she corrected. "Not politics. I was building something while you were building a brand." Ethan stood. "You got what you wanted. The cameras, the clout, the kiss." Naomi smiled. "That kiss? It wasn't for the cameras. It was for you." He paused at the door. "You were always 3 moves ahead," he said. She raised her cup. "Checkmate." The next morning, Ivy sat alone in the park, the Capitol glowing in the background. Her phone pinged. New file received. Voss leaked memo.pdf. She opened it. It was real. A memo from Ethan to Halloran's campaign staff, coaching them on how to exploit racially charged narratives to manipulate emotional voters. The language was cold, calculated, cruel. Her hands shook. She knew this was the endgame Naomi and Lennox were hoping for. But the choice was hers. Post it and destroy Ethan for good, or keep it and walk away. Her phone buzzed again. "Unknown number. He framed you in a meeting today. Said you were the leak." Ivy stared at the screen. Her eyes hardened. She clicked upload. Within minutes, it was everywhere. #Voss memo. #expose kingmaker. #viral downfall. Cable news anchors erupted in frenzy. Ivy sat back and closed her eyes as the city consumed the man who tried to use her as a pawn. Ethan sat alone in the empty conference room of what used to be his empire. The Voss group was silent. Staff gone. Phones dead. Screens black. But one light blinked red. Recording. He looked into the camera, unshaven, eyes tired. "Maybe you're here because you heard the scandal," he began. "Maybe you want to see me cry, confess, or beg." A pause. "I'll do none of that." His voice was calm. Too calm. "For 20 years, I built winners. Presidents, senators, CEOs, and every time I told myself it was strategy, that the lies, the leverage, the betrayals, they were just tools." He leaned in. "But the truth is, I became the weapon." He paused, then smiled faintly. "You want to know what really destroyed me? Not the memo, not Naomi, not even Ivy." He looked into the lens. "It was thinking I couldn't be replaced." The screen cut to black. Text appeared. "Confessions of a Kingmaker. Premiering tonight, YouTube and TikTok." Within minutes, it had 2.7 million views. Naomi stood on a balcony above a cheering crowd. Cameras flashed. The sound of history in motion. Governor Lennox stood beside her, arm wrapped around her waist. But Naomi didn't need him. She was electric on her own. In the crowd, Ivy stood near the back, sunglasses on, a quiet smile on her lips. On a jumbotron nearby, clips from Ethan's confessional video played on loop. A slow zoom. The screen froze on a single moment. The kiss. Naomi, in white. Lennox leaning in. Ethan in the background, out of focus, his expression frozen in heartbreak. The caption beneath read, "That's a moment I lost everything." Across the internet, comments exploded. "Naomi is a goddess." This is what power looks like. He played chess and got checkmated in public. The queen always returned stronger. Ethan watched from a hotel room across town. Alone. Broken. Still watching. That kiss, the one he thought was for show, was a moment the story turned. Naomi closed her speech with 6 words. Never underestimate the woman you buried. Cue blackout. Cue applause. Cue virality.